everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, Lessons with Guitar Man. My name's Aaron and I'll be your designated driver here today for this fantastic song, Maydelle's Reel. Now Maydelle's Reel is a traditional song. It's a little different than your typical flat picking number in that it is in the key of E. A lot of times you'll find that flat picking songs are either in, if they're in a major key, they're either in G, C, or D. Or, you know, sometimes maybe in the key of A, mixolydian or something like that. But regardless, this tune is in the key of open E, and I particularly like that because it's different than most of the tunes that you're going to find out there. And I think it has some really cool parts, like in the B section when it does that little trilly thing that reminds me a lot of Les Paul. He used to do that all the time in his playing. It really reminds me of those little clarinet type licks or whatever he was thinking of when he did that. Another thing that I want to do with this song is do what I call a deep dive into this song. I've got 4 more variations of this tune written out. One in this area of the fingerboard, one in this area of the fingerboard, one in this area, one in this area, and a harmony part. And I'm going to break all those down, teach them all on this channel. So what I'm going to basically have is 5 different versions of this song for you, and all in the key of E, moving up and down the fingerboard. And by the time you get done playing this one, you'll be pretty proficient at playing in the key of E, and also kind of have a little bit of an introduction to the modes, and that we'll be playing out of, you know, 4 or 5 of the different modes moving up and down the fingerboard on this. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive in there now and see what makes this thing work. In the pickup line here, you're going to see an open and a 2. Open, 2. Okay, and then moving on to measure number 1, you're going to have a 1, 2, 1, 2. And what I like to do here is kind of put my pointer finger right here and keep it planted and do the old 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, and then moving on to the next 4 notes, you're going to have an open, 2, open, 2. So that's open, 2, open, 2. All right, and that whole measure together is going to sound like so. All right, and moving on to measure number 2 now, what we're going to have here to start this off is a double open. And after that, you're going to have an open, 4, 2. So a double open, open, 4, 2. And the last 3 notes are open, 2, open. And that whole measure together is going to sound like so. 1, 2, ready, go. All right. And moving on to measure number 3 now, what you're going to see with measure number 3 is we're playing the exact same notes that we actually played in measure number 1. So there's nothing new to learn there. And moving on to measure number 4, we're going to have an open, 2, 1, 2, 4. Open, 2, 1, 2, 4. And then an open, 2. So that whole measure together is going to sound like so. 1, 2, ready, go. Open, 2, 1, 2, 4. Open, 2. All right. Now let's go ahead and play through measures 1 through 4 slowly and see what that sounds like. So 1, 2, ready, go. And moving on to measure number 5 now, you're going to see that measure number 5 is exactly the same as measure number 1 and measure number 3, so there's nothing new to learn there. And measure number 6 is exactly the same as measure number 2, so there's nothing new to learn there. However, when we get to measure number 7, we are going to have a new little part over this A chord here, and that's going to go like so. You're going to have a 2, 1, 2, open. That's 2, 1, 2, open. And then an 2, 4, open, 2. And that's 2, 4, open, 2. And that whole measure together is going to sound like so. 1, 2, ready, go. And that's all down ups in that measure. Moving on to the 8th measure, or the first ending of the A part, you're going to have 4, open, 2, 4, double open. So 4, open, 2, 4, double open. And that's a real common type fiddle tune / bluegrass tune type ending there. You might recognize that. And then the last 2 notes are open, 2. Okay? And that whole measure together sounds like so. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, and looking at the 9th measure, or the second ending of the A part, you're going to have the same exact notes we have in the first ending, except the last note there is going to be a 7 here. Okay, just a 1, 7, instead of doing open 2. We just do a rest and then go to 7. So basically the same thing there, except for the last note. Okay, now let's go ahead and play through the A part slowly and see what that sounds like. So 1, 2, you know what to do. Now, in the B part here, we're basically going to have this little trill part that you heard me doing in the introduction. And that's really neat in my opinion. And again, I think this is totally a Les Paul type lick. I don't know if the person that wrote this song listened to Les Paul or not, but that is totally, to me, a Les Paul lick. At any rate, what we're going to have here is, at the very end of the A part, the last note is that 7 right here. That's going to be an upstroke. And then we're getting ready to do this trill, which is going to be a 4, 7, 4, and that's all one pick. So it's going to be down, triplet, and then an open. All right, and then the next trill is going to be the same exact thing, where we have an upstroke on the B string here, and you're going to go up, and the same thing again, a down on the 4, 7, 4, and that's a trill, and then an open, like so. And then you're going to squeak way back here and grab the 1. Okay? And that whole measure together is going to sound like so. 1, 2, ready, go. All right. And moving on to the 11th measure, what you're going to see here is basically the exact same lick we did back in the A part on measure number 7 over the A chord, except in the 7th measure of the A part, what we did was this, then went to open 2 are the last notes, where in measure number 11 here, we're doing the same thing, the 2, 1, 2, open 2, 4, open, but instead of going to 2, we're going to jump back up here and squeak to this 7 on an upstroke, okay? So it's the same exact lick as measure number 7, but we're just changing the last note to here. So really, there's only one note to learn, that, okay? And that whole measure together is going to sound like so. Okay? And then in measure number 12, we're going to repeat the exact same thing we did in measure number 10 of the B part, which is the trill lick. So there's nothing new to learn there. And then in measure number 13, we're going to do the same thing we did in measure number 11, which is over the A chord and ending on this 7th fret here, note on the high E string. And then in measure number 14, you guessed it, we're going to do the same exact thing again, that trill lick. And then in measure number 15, we're going to do the same thing we did in measure number 11 and measure number 13, but here we're just going to stop on the open high E and play a quarter note. So that measure is going to sound like so. 1, 2, ready, go. All right. And then moving on to measure number 16, we're going to do the exact same thing as we did way back in measure number 7 of the A part, where we play same exact lick, so there's nothing new to learn there. We're just basically pulling a little piece out of the A section and putting it into the B section here. And then moving on to the last two measures here, or measure number 17, our first ending, you're going to have the, okay, just like we did in the A section, and then we're going to grab, you guessed it, this little 7th fret high E string here on an upstring, on an upswing, and then start the whole thing over and play through the B part one more time. And then finally, moving on to the second ending, or measure number 18, in the B part, you're going to have 4, open, 2, 4, open, and just end on that E there. Okay, so let's go ahead now and play through the whole B part slowly. What I'm going to do though is grab this 7th fret high E string, this one note from the end of the second ending in the A part, to get into the B part, and you'll understand why when I start it. So 1, 2, ready, go. All right, well, there you have the B part. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and play through this song one time slowly, and then that'll be a wrap on this tune. 1, 2, ready, go. All right, well, there you have Maydelle's Reel. Some final thoughts on this tune for you. There's not a whole lot of tricky stuff going on in the A section. In the very beginning when it goes, right there's a little, kind of pay attention to that. And also when you're going to the B chord, that's a little bit of a stretch because you're jumping between 4 frets in the open position in the key of E. What I like to do is move my wrist and kind of go, so I don't have to stretch my hand. In the B section, obviously the trill part is the most important thing, where you got to up, trill, down, up, trill, down, and then you got to squeak way back here and grab this first fret, that note right there. That's probably the only tricky part really in the B section. All right, well, that's a wrap on this tune. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. If you have any questions for me, feel free to send me an email listed below in the description. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll be seeing you down the road.